Obsessed here. Today we're going to introduce some new products from the Obsessed product lineup. Obsessed products were created in consultation with Obsessed. Today we're going to introduce the Obsessed Clay Lube, ultrafine, fine, medium, and heavy detailing clay. The clay you choose will depend on your specific application. Now let me show you a quick product demonstration. We prepared this car earlier for claying. So just a couple things about claying. First off, what do you need to do to prepare the car? Well, you should never ever clay the car when it's dirty. So we want to do a really thorough clean. You can leave the car wet if you want. For this demonstration, the car is currently dry. So one of the biggest things first off is just what is clay. So a lot of people don't really understand why we clay. So one thing is, claying is to remove surface contamination such as iron, tar, residues, maybe sap, overspray, stuck to the paint that doesn't come off in normal washing. The clay basically is very similar to shaving. That's my way of explaining it the easiest. So when you shave your face, for example, the blade doesn't do anything other than pick up anything that's sitting above the skin. The same thing with clay. So we're putting the clay across the surface, and all it's doing is picking up those surface contaminants and then embedding them into the clay. Similar to, as I mentioned, shaving. So one thing too, just thinking about that for a second, if you are dragging a piece of clay across the paint, we're going to do some damage, no different than if we take a dry blade and we rub it across our face. We're probably going to irritate or potentially scratch the skin. On a car's paint surface, as we know, it doesn't need a whole lot to cause some damage. So with shaving, we're going to use some shaving cream to provide some lubricant before we shave. Claying, we're going to provide some clay lube to the surface to provide some lubricity, some lubricant to allow the clay to glide across the surface, and again, just focus on picking up the contaminants. For this example here, it's going to be quite difficult to see. Video doesn't work that well. White, in a very white room, it's going to be washed out quite a bit. But looking at the car, I can see a lot of pieces of iron. There's some orange spots, which is iron starting to rust. Have some black spots here. That's tar. Again, it's going to be hard for you to see, so I'm going to do something we wouldn't normally do. The bumper here, for example, does have some paint protection film on it. It's a self-healing film. So I'm going to just rub it dry. The reason why I want to do this is I just want to basically express to you that there's a lot of stuff on the surface here. So we're just going to go quiet here for a second. I'm just going to brush across the bumper where the paint protection film is, just so you can hear the contaminants that are on the surface after the thorough wash we did. So just listen to this. Okay, can you hear that? That click, 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 click. Okay, that's just in one little area. This whole back end is covered in it, and again, difficult to see, but I'm just trying to show you what's on the surface. I wouldn't do that to the painted areas. We're going to scratch it, plain and simple. So a couple things. How do you know if your car has contaminants on it? Maybe this is a black car, and we're going to have trouble seeing this. Essentially, when you wash your car, what we usually do when the car's wet and we're usually wearing gloves, we can actually pick up with our fingertips that it's not perfectly smooth. Another trick some people do is put a thin bag, maybe like a really thin sandwich bag or like a bread bag, that thickness, over your fingers. And what that does is it just makes them a little bit more sensitive to be able to feel the contaminants. This car, I can see them from about 1.5 feet. I can see it pretty much clear as day. But other times you might have to feel, like when we're prepping a car, we're in a wash stage, we're finished washing, and now we're going to be checking the panels. Where does the areas get the most? A new car, for example, it's probably going to be everything. The top of the roof, top of the trunk, top of the fenders and quarters, etc., because of maybe where it is in a rail car, maybe where it is at the factory. A lot of contaminants are sitting on it and sticking in the paint. Once a car's been decontaminated from new or maybe maintenance, you're really only going to get most of the contaminants from behind the front wheel, maybe up to the door handles and around. Depends on the shape of the car, if it's a hatchback or an SUV. This particular car, for example, this whole back end, because the exhaust and the tires, and we get a little bit of a whirlwind here, so we get quite a bit thrown on here. We don't get too much on top of the trunk lid, but a lot here on this little bit of the wing, around the license plate, bumper, etc. Some of it's from exhaust, some of it's from our brakes, some of it's just from the tires picking up contaminants and putting it on the surface. I mentioned we have 4 different grades of clay. We got ultrafine, fine, medium, heavy. Always going to recommend that you're going to use an ultrafine first, unless you know for sure that you're going to be polishing the car after, it's got overspray, it's got some heavy contaminants. Maybe in that scenario you're not. We're always going to go to an ultrafine clay to play on the safe side. If we're using the ultrafine clay and it's just not picking up enough, we're going to have to step up. Then we might go into fine or medium. Caution on that, if we're going into medium, we're going into heavy, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be marring the surface, so you might have to be polishing. So that's something you're going to have to decide at that time. I'll kind of show as we're doing it as well, but you're also going to want to test with any product, whatever it is. You're always going to want to test an area just to make sure that you're not incurring any extra damage or getting the results that you want. So we're going to want to do a little area, then we're going to want to wipe it down, we're going to want to take a look to see if it's doing any damage. So let's start out. Let's talk about the ultrafine for a second. We're in a fairly cold environment, so sometimes the clay gets pretty hard. One trick might be just to put the clay bar in a bucket of water, hot water, to let it warm up. It becomes quite a bit more malleable. We've got a pretty big piece of clay here. This is one of the bars of the 200 gram, and we're only going to take a segment of that. So I'm just going to open the package. Take it out. It's not the easiest. There we go. Okay. And I just want to break off a little bit, and I want to make about a 2-3 inch diameter puck. So as we're talking about that, I'll just kind of play with it a little bit in my hands as I'm talking to get it ready. So I've got it quite warm from the hot water, so it's really nice to work with. It's quite soft. Just going to kind of play with it a little bit. You might want to roll it in a ball, flatten it out. I don't want it too thick. So I want a little bit of surface area. And I don't want it too thick because then I'm just wasting it, to be honest. So now I've got a little bit of a puck here. So let's just go over. We're going to try a little bit on this spot here. We're just going to get the clay lubricant. Very, very important. Car's dry right now. If we start dragging this clay across, it picks up something. We're going to scratch the surface. So I want to put some lubricant down. Just so it can glide nicely. You can put some lubricant on the clay. And now we're simply just going to back and forth. We're not going to put a lot of pressure. We're just going to move it. We want the clay to do everything. If you put too much pressure, there's a pretty good chance you're going to do some marring as well. Obviously, the reason why we want to do clay is to make a better surface, not make a worse surface. So this is the reason why I'm giving all these cautions. Okay, so just simply, just going to go back and forth. And you can usually feel it kind of a little bit dragging, and also and then it kind of picks up, kind of speeds up. And you can't see it from the camera, and again, the quality once the video is uploaded, but I can, on a white car, I can actually see the pieces disappear. I've got a lot of lubricant here, so there's no problem going forward. If you want to, you could change directions a little bit. It doesn't really matter that much. You want to kind of inspect the clay. So if the camera's picking it up properly, we're going to see I've already picked up quite a bit just in this little section. So this, I'm not too bad. It doesn't look like we have too much in here. I can use now a little bit of a cleaner side of it, and I can continue on. Again, want to make sure we got a lot of lubricant. We like to use a true clay lubricant. That's why we have the Obsessed Clay Lubricant. I'm not a big fan of adding gloss enhancements. You know, some people use detailers, or some people use other products as a lubricant, shampoos. I like to use a dedicated lubricant, something that's intended just for this purpose. Then therefore we're not adding gloss, we're not adding any products. We're just simply adding something that's going to give us some lubrication. So we're just going to do a little bit more here. One thing too to note, so this is a good example. I've got paint protection film right here. There's an edge here which probably can't pick up on the camera. If I take the clay and go over it and come back, I'm actually going to scrape off the clay on the edge. So this happens a lot of times. Clients come in, or we have cars come in that someone's previously detailed. It's got a lot of clay in there. It's actually kind of hard to take out. So just be aware of that. If you have clear film, paint protection film, 3M, whatever you're going to call it. This is Expel Ultimate Paint Protection Film. If you have an edge, just stay away from it. You can go one direction, but don't go the other direction. You don't want to pick up the clay. You're going to have some fun cleaning that up after. On a white car, you might not see it right now, but you will see it as it gets dirty. A black car, you're obviously going to see white clay pretty easily. Okay, so I've covered over this. It's moving really, really nicely and sliding really well. I can't even hear anything anymore. So what I'm going to do is I just want to inspect that area that we talked about. The side here that I clayed has no contamination on it at all. And here we still have specks, a few orange spots, black spots. I understand it's going to be difficult to see, so I'm just going to try to see if we can hear it, just for a better demonstration. So I'm just going to reach in here, and you hear that? It kind of sounds like sandpaper. Now the area we clayed, there's no sound at all. Really, really slippery. So basically that kind of describes on what we're doing for clay and the end result. So what you're going to do now is you're going to continue on the areas that do require claying. I would use the ultrafine first, and you might have to step up depending on what it is you're dealing with, maybe to a fine or a medium or heavy. And that basically describes claying. Thank you for watching.